Hi everyone, Avi Blumensteel here with the Law Office of Vecchio Blumensteel PLLC. Welcome back to our ongoing series on frequently asked questions about Texas probate, estates, wills, and trust law. In this video, I want to talk about a question we get an awful lot. Part of our practice is estate planning, and it happens a lot that someone will come into our office and say, hey, I'm here for estate planning, and I need to set up a trust. And my question is, well, what do you need a trust for? And they look at me and say, well, I need it to avoid probate, of course. So the question here is, in the state of Texas, do you need a trust to avoid probate? Well, to answer this question, I think it's helpful to first look at what a trust is and what it does. But to get to that, we first have to understand a little bit about the nature of owning property. I know that sounds really abstract. But from a legal standpoint, nobody actually owns property. What you own is a bundle of rights and interests in that property, in that item. So for example, if you own a car, from a legal standpoint, you don't really own the car. Instead, you own a bundle of rights and interests in that car. Like you may have the exclusive right to drive the car, to maintain the car, to sell it, to modify it. You can paint it whatever color you want, but nobody else has the right to do that. And when you sell the car to someone else, what you're doing is you're selling that bundle of interests and rights to another person. And that's really how, from the Anglo-American perspective, how property ownership works. So a trust is not an account, a security, or a financial instrument. Instead, a trust is an arrangement that splits up the rights and interests in some property between two different people. What's a good example of this? Well, let's say you have a guy named Dave, okay? And Dave has a brokerage account that has a lot of money and stocks in it. So Dave gives the account to Bill, who is his trader, his financial advisor, says, Bill, I'm giving this account to you. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm giving it to you. It's yours to own and manage. You can do whatever you want for it, but I have a condition. You don't get any of the profit or benefit from the account. All that goes to my son, Sam. So in this situation, the person who is giving away, who's splitting the rights, is Dave. Dave is called the grantor or the trustor. He is entrusting that brokerage account to Bill, to his trader. He's reposing his trust in Bill. Bill is therefore the trustee. And it is for the benefit, the account is for the benefit of Sam, Dave's son. Sam is therefore the beneficiary. So in this situation, the right to own and manage and make decisions regarding the account is all given to the trader Bill. But the right to the benefit of that account, the profit, goes to Sam. So here the interests and the ownership are split. But within this arrangement also creates a certain number of duties and responsibilities. Bill has to act and manage the account according to Dave's instructions, so he has a duty to listen to Dave. He also has a duty to Sam, a fiduciary duty to Sam, to manage the account for Sam's best interest. So this nexus of split interest in the property and of the duties and rights that it creates, that's a basic trust. Now, when a person creates a trust, and that's usually the grantor or the trustor, which in our example would be Dave, right? That's the name I used. That would be Dave. Dave is the trustor or the grantor. In this example, the person who creates a trust, the trustor or the grantor, can customize the duties and the interests and the nature of the split of the interests in an infinite number of ways, depending on what they need the trust to do. That means that there's a tremendous number of different types of trusts. This is a creature with a whole lot of different varieties in law. And as a result, trusts can be made to do a whole lot of different things. You can create a trust for asset protection, to insulate your property from creditors. You can use a trust to set up and plan for the well-being and financial support of an elderly parent or for a disabled child. You can also use a trust to help qualify someone for disability or for Medicaid benefits. And you can also use it for estate planning. Now, in estate planning, people often create an inter vivos trust, and that means a trust that they make while they're still alive. And they put their property into this inter vivos trust with the instruction that the trustee give the property to someone else, the beneficiary, when the trustor, the trust creator, dies. And the benefit of doing a trust this way is that it avoids probate. When the assets go into the trust and the person dies, the probate courts and probate law has no jurisdiction over the trust. Instead, the terms of the trust when the trust was created dictate what happens to the property, and there's no involvement from the courts. Now, we get asked a lot, I want to set up a trust because I want to avoid probate. Well, that makes sense if and only if the costs and liabilities of the probate process are more than the costs and liabilities of setting up and managing a trust. In some states, especially California, that's actually a great example. In California, probate is very expensive. There's statutory probate fees. There are taxes and costs associated with it that can eat into the estate. So there's a strong incentive in California to avoid probate. So in California, the whole goal of estate planning is really to try to avoid the probate process. So in California, whenever people do estate planning, they have trusts. Texas is almost like the total opposite. So here in Texas, we don't have any statutory probate fees. There's no estate or inheritance taxes. And the costs involved in probate are relatively little compared to many other states. That means that in most cases, probate is actually easier and less expensive than going through the process of planning, setting up, and managing a trust. In the state of Texas, for most people, the probate process is their friend. And a good attorney-drafted will and estate plan will be more than enough to handle a person's estate. Now, that doesn't mean that you should not consider a trust for estate planning in the state of Texas. All I'm saying is that if your only purpose in considering a trust is to avoid probate, it might not be the best option here in Texas. Probate may be easier than a trust in the state of Texas. There are other situations, though, where a trust might work. For example, if you really want to keep the nature of your assets private, a trust offers a lot better privacy protections than the probate process. Also, a trust offers certain aspects of creditor protection if you're worried about claims against your estate when you pass away. The most important reason to have a trust as part of your estate planning in Texas, though, and these are the two most important reasons. One is if you have property that needs to be managed after your death. Like if you have a child who's disabled or you have a relative that needs long-term care, then you can set up a trust to manage your assets after you die for their benefit. The second reason that you would need it is if you actually have federal estate tax liability. Right now, as I sit here, most people, 99% of Americans, are not going to have to worry about the estate tax. The estate tax has not become an issue unless your net worth at the time of your death is over about $11.8 million. So that cuts out 99% of people that are going to pass away. But if you have assets that are in that territory and you're concerned about them, then having trusts might help you in planning as far as estate taxes goes. So that would be a reason to consider a trust. But if your sole reason for considering a trust is to avoid probate in the state of Texas, it may not be your best option. Texas gives a really big toolbox to its citizens for estate planning and gives them a lot of resources to preserve their legacy for their family and their loved ones. If you're considering setting up a will, a trust, or doing any other sort of estate planning, please call us to talk about your options. We're happy to help find the solution that really works for you. Thank you guys, and have a great week. Bye-bye.